So we've begun a series of conversations all over the world. We call them Golden Civilization Conversations. And the notion of them is that it's time for a truly participative democracy to really make a difference. The conversations as they've occurred are filled with joy. We'll show you some of them here. Some feel for them, the model of them. They're filled with joy, they're filled with delight. So contrary to many political movements that often feel quite heavy, this is something that has a lot of playfulness in it, but also an earnestness of endeavor. So how this came about was, as I was writing The Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness, I was thinking, well, this is a resource to help the world think about how it might change and develop a golden civilization. And what I realized was that how much more powerful if that image of a golden civilization came from individuals and groups all over the world, with each one of them creating their own vision of a golden civilization and beginning to communicate with each other as they took action to make it happen. And one of my intuitions, and so far it's proven pretty accurate, one of my intuitions was that the images of the golden civilization from community to community, whether it's in poverty or in wealth, whether it's from one culture or another, would fundamentally have the same vision. And so far we've done about 40 conversations, close to 40. I've been a participant in 20 to 25 of them. And it's a privilege, it's been a privilege to be a participant in those. And they come up with very, very similar vision, as we'll show you. So here's the premise, okay? So the premise is that we're 1,000 years out, or maybe 1,000 generations if you're very pessimistic, or possibly a couple hundred years if you're very optimistic. And we've arrived. We've arrived at a golden civilization. You know, dodged that bullet of the early 21st century. We've made it. We're there. So the question is, what's it like to be there? What does it feel like inside of you? What are the systems? How's it working? You know, what do you see? Okay, so that's the beginning of it. And then we ask you to come back to now, or to look back to now, and look at what's happening right now. And look at all of the systems and structures of civilization that would just take us there, just like that. And look at all of those that we're engaged with that wouldn't. Okay, like the trajectory to Saturn's moons. Well, the Cassini, it's got to, where is the aim impeccable toward a golden civilization, and where isn't it? And where it isn't, throw those systems out. Okay, it's time to make this happen. Throw those systems out. And if there are new systems that need to be adopted, well, let's adopt them. You know, we're in this incredible democracy. We have the ability to do this. It's time to make it happen. And in some ways, with all of the threats that are out there, we have no choice. We're either going to make this decision to make a golden civilization happen, but it's not a time to compromise. It's a time to make this work. So, how does the conversation evolve? One of the reasons I want to show you these conversations is I want each and every one of you to be a participant in one of these conversations, and even better, to be a leader of one of them, a facilitator of them. They're very simple. We've designed it so simply that virtually anybody could just sit around their kitchen table and with a pad of paper and with their best friends or their closest family and have one of these conversations. And it starts just with a conversation. But the notion of this is that if you just have one conversation, we're not going to get very far. You know, it's like electing our representatives as we do. And we get all excited, and we're really happy when we win, and we're really despondent when we don't. But before we know it, we're back to being at a dinner party, and all we're doing is complaining, resenting, blaming, and feeling powerless. So the notion here was, how do we create a genuine, participative democracy where we own our power and we make this golden civilization happen? That's the idea. Let's make it happen. So let me show you how these conversations work. I'm going to show you the design for the initial conversation, but as I say, if this is going to work, we need ongoing conversations so that the groups that get together begin to take action, whether they meet once a quarter or once a week. It doesn't really matter, as long as there's a place where the community feels they can hold this kind of conversation and feel aligned with each other, feel safe together, and delighted in the endeavors that they're making. Even if they're going in different directions, the aim will be the same. So let's look at how this works. This is the first chart. So sometimes I might have a couple of flip charts or even 3 flip charts to do it, but you can do it on a pad of paper. So it's very, very simple. But if it's an audience this size, I'd have a flip chart or a whiteboard with 3 different elements to it. So this is the first, a golden civilization. What would you fill into this circle? You know, what are you're there 1,000 years from now. It's here. What is in that golden civilization? Imagine. It's working. So we've had enough conversations that we've done something really quite fun. Have you heard of a word cloud? We've created a word cloud, all right, that has all the words, I don't know, it's of at least a dozen of the conversations that have happened so far. And what it does is it takes all the words that were used in the circles of golden civilizations, and it kind of puts them together, and the words that come up most are biggest. So I love that kindness is there in the center of this word cloud. Kindness, community, no war, listening, honesty, connection, harmony, freedom. I'm sure that if you read all of the words there, you'd find most of the words that you'd put yourselves into it. It's pretty wonderful. The notion is that if we have an inspiring vision, and it's a vision that's held community by community, all over the world, all over the country, what can hold us back? What can hold us back? And we'll come to that. There's one of the groups that I've had the privilege of being part of is a group that took place on Primrose Hill in London. And I love Primrose Hill. William Blake is one of my heroes, and it was the place where Blake saw the spiritual sun. So it's immortalized by that line. I did it with a friend named Julian Powell. Julian has continued to lead that group, so it's one of the ongoing groups that we have, and it's filled with wonderful, really interesting people that are making a difference in the world. And at the end of the first meeting that we had, Julian took the words that everybody had put in their vision of a golden civilization as a group, and he crafted a statement. I wonder if I could read to you that statement. It will give you a feeling of, I think, what all of these groups really end up coming up with. So he calls it a vision for a golden civilization. If, as a consequence of our work together and in league with other like-minded groups across the world, we, the human race, were to live in liberty with truth, freedom of expression, and justice at the core of our existence. Place the health and longevity of planet Earth and all who live on it at the forefront of our attention. Delight ourselves and each other with our joy, humor, optimism, and sense of fun. Live in harmony and compassion, embracing difference in a spirit of empathy, kindness, tolerance, and love. Explore and deepen our wisdom, self-knowledge, and creativity through vibrant dialogue, learning, science, and art. Move forward every day with a deep sense of collective endeavor, courage, vigor, and vitality to improve the lives of all on the planet. How would that be? I choke up when I read it. I'm so moved by it. But it's similar to all of the visions that we've had. Similar visions wherever we go, whatever country, whatever level of economic life, similar vision. Okay, so we have the first chart, which is a golden civilization. The second chart we put up is the chart of obstacles. And there the question, I already threw it out a bit, what could possibly get in the way, right? And of course we know all kinds of things that can get in the way. And what's really been interesting to me here, really wonderful actually, is that usually we're thinking about politics, we're thinking about economics, inequalities and power centers and all of this, and how they get in the way. You know what the first two words are that come out more often than any others here? Fear and greed. Fear and greed. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, people everywhere know that the inner life has to change as much as the outer, and that we have to pay attention to that and do something about that. Oh, I find that wonderful. So we now have an inner circle and an outer circle for obstacles, and we put all the obstacles up there. So in the meeting, it feels real, I mean, it feels like, we're not just off in some fairyland. We know there are problems. Here they are, we've listed them. So the next question, of course, is, what are we going to do about them, right? So let's see what we could do next. The next set is, the final board is an action board. What are we going to do about them? So on one side of the action board, we have global, national, local, group, and individual actions. And lots of actions come up, curing climate change, getting money out of politics. You can imagine all of the ones that are up there. Many wonderful, wonderful actions come up. And usually, both with obstacles and with actions, we'll prioritize, because with the obstacles, you can get overwhelmed with all of the obstacles. So a lot of the times what we do in this exercise is we'll ask people to just name their top three, so that we don't get an endless list and fall into that trap of despondency that we can fall into pretty easily. And in a similar way with actions, at the end of this meeting, we are moving toward weighing in the group, prioritizing which action might we focus on as a group. And what's also been wonderful in these groups is that often there's two or three. And some people are more inclined toward one, and some people are more inclined toward the other. Well, wonderful, and they get to support each other in that process and see the energy that arises because this is an action that means something to them. Sometimes it's just one person. There was one group where one person was passionate about education. I've had other groups where the whole group was passionate, but in this group there was just one. And he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and research systems of education, and I'm going to come back next time, and we're going to talk about all the different range of possibilities, all by himself. So wonderful actions come up. The final 15 or 20 minutes, we go to commitments. So we take the inspiration and the energy of the meeting, and we ask people to make personal commitments. What are you going to do between now and the next meeting? If the next meeting's next week, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if the meeting's 3 months from now? What are you going to do in the intervening time? We've had some wonderful things. We've had people say, I'm going to listen better. I'm going to really attempt to listen to people on the other side of the aisle, basically. We've had people talk about making sure they do an act of kindness every single day. We've had people clearly taking political action in the political season. So it's just wonderful. And again, the commitments inspire people. It's a simple thing to do. I just gather a group and do these 3 charts. We've had conversations in all of these places and then some. So this is just the beginning. There have been, as I say, by the end of this week, there probably will have been close to 100 conversations. There's certainly 40 to 100. And there will be hundreds throughout the spring. We're aiming at thousands throughout the year. We are connecting groups through our website, which is agoldencivilization.com. We're connecting groups. So if they have a passion to work on climate change, they can work with other groups who also have that passion. So on the website, we're including resources, resources to study, but also resources of groups that are active in these areas. I just simply want to invite you to participate in one, to let us know if you'd like to be part of one, even more to host one. We've got a wonderful manual instructing how to do this. I mean, it is very simple. But we've got a manual that goes into details. And I'll be available periodically doing Zoom calls with groups, wrestling with what are the most difficult questions you've encountered in these groups. So far, there haven't been really difficult questions. It's been really quite wonderful as people come together.